So the next point I want to make is about your quote. And in your quote, you talk about how you mention the quote you quote, which by the way I had trouble finding, but I'm sure it's in a different translated version. The quote you quote is that God is formless and God has a form of an eight-armed elephant or something, which is a quote you must have pulled out of context somewhere. Because there are quotes like this. There are quotes in Guru Granth Sahib that says God has no forms, yet God is everything. In some places, God is this way. In some places, God is this way. God is every single thing. God is in every single human being. God is in everything. This quote does not mean that there's an elephant sitting somewhere controlling everyone and that's God. This quote is saying that God is formless, but this whole universe, every molecule in this universe, that's what Guru Granth Sahib says. Every single molecule in this universe has God present in it. And that makes sense. God made this universe from God's self. God was the beginning of all. If you only have carrots, how are you going to get potatoes? If you only had God at the beginning, where are you going to get another material? Everything God made, God must have made from himself. So this quote that you're quoting here, it does not mean God's a certain way. It means that God's in everything. This whole universe is God's form. This whole universe is God's image. And I believe Christianity also teaches that man was made in the image of God. Which brings me to my next issue, the issue of hair, as well as the other 5 Ks. You mentioned that hair is a shame for man, and you mentioned the Bible, but you don't mention the story of Samson, whose strength was in his hair, nor do you mention the story of Christ, which I read, a parable, of when Christ wanted to wash the feet of a woman and he was looking for the most blessed thing he could find, and the only thing he found worthy was his hair. So you don't mention those stories at all. And you say that it's a shame on one side, which is a quote I think that you certainly misinterpreted. And here I'll mention that I disagree with your whole concept that, it's an original language. That makes no sense. The language of God is the language of love. God can speak to all. Otherwise, how would people who never even read English reach God? You say the Bible has been translated by many people. I'm sure there's some remote language in the universe because there are so many that the Bible has not been translated into. And this work is done by human beings. And when something is translated, the message changes over and over. At the end, you say the Bible, perversions of the word are coming out. And you say that they're coming out to make God more gender neutral. Here you say the word is the word. If 200 years from now, someone looked at those, what you call perversions, and said, this is the word is the word, it's not a mistranslation. And you came out, or a priest like you came out and said, nope, it's not a perversion. The translation, the truth does not change. That's exactly what you're saying. That's that argument right there. One hand, you're saying something can be perverted. There could be perversions of it. The second hand, you're saying no matter how it's translated, it's the truth. But there are perversions. Things get translated over and over again. And I'm sure that quote about hair being a shame, that does not make sense in the concept of Christianity itself. Because you teach that man is made in God's image. You have that story about Christ, that story about Samson. And then you look at those stories, and you also look at that fact that I mentioned before. If we're made in God's image, every human being is born with hair. Every single human being. Is God's image a shameful human being? A shameful image? If hair was so bad, why did God not give men birth with short hair and women birth with long hair? Here you're being completely unreasonable in this translation that you yourself made about hair. Not only are you being unreasonable about it, your comparison with nails is different. The concept of keeping hair is not because its hair is powerful. And you quoted by Guru Ka Singh. That's one man talking about his experience. He feels something spiritual in his hair. That's not a Sikh doctrine that you quoted. And that's not a reason that every Sikh would probably agree with. I mean, some Sikhs might feel a spiritual connection, that their hair has a spiritual purpose, and some Sikhs might not. But the concept is about not altering your body, not going away. It's the same way most baptized Sikhs, we're not supposed to wear earrings, poke holes in our body, no tattoos. It's about keeping your body close to the way it was made. Now you mentioned nails. No one cuts the part of the nail that's attached to the skin because that's part of the body. That's part of how it was made. It's the excess nail that people cut. Hair, too, is part of the body. It's natural. It's how God intended things. And if you look at the insides of our body, we have little hairs inside us, too. Should we cut those as well? Your argument here is completely flawed because everything God made is beautiful. We're God's image. And if God made us in His image, who are we to go around and mess that image up? Everyone is beautiful the way they are. We are beautiful the way we were made. We are all made in God's image. And if a Sikh wants to keep their hair and keep that form and that's their belief, so be it. There's nothing wrong with that belief. The next thing you mention is the turban. And I don't believe you've understood the reason for wearing the turban. The turban has a reason that has more to do with character and moral values and less to do with spirituality. During the times in India when Sikhism came about, what happened was that the government of that time, who called themselves Muslims, but really they were godless, they would kill people they disagree with, whether they were Hindus or other Muslims that they disagree with, whether they were Sikhs. They would do it in the name of religion. They, like some selfish priests, would misinterpret their scripture, their Quran, and they would use it to commit atrocities, to commit acts that are completely opposite to what any loving creator, God, would have intended. So this ruling class decided we want to oppress everyone and make them convert to our religion by force. So they made some rules. The turban was always a symbol of royalty. They said only royal people who are Muslims can wear the turban. They said non-Muslims must pay tax. Non-Muslims cannot ride horses. And they built their throne in Delhi. And what the Sikh Guru did at the time was he said that a Sikh should never ever stand and see oppression take place. The Guru said everyone was equal and no one has the right to oppress others. So the Gurus told their Sikhs, tie a turban, not one but even two turbans. Even to this day, some Sikhs will tie a smaller turban over their turban to remember that. And this symbolized that we were all royal. And the Sikh Guru also built a throne that was bigger than the throne built by the tyrants who were ruling in Delhi. And the Guru called this throne Akal Takht, the throne of God. The Gurus also started the tradition of horseback riding because only Muslims were allowed to ride horses. And not only that, but the Guru built an army and those women who were kidnapped and raped by those tyrants, those people who were being looted, the Guru fought against them and said, we must always stand for the meek. And the turban symbolizes equality. It symbolizes that a Sikh will never ever become a bystander, a silent bystander to oppression. It symbolizes liberty. It symbolizes freedom. This turban symbolizes these values. Many Sikhs were killed, but they refused to take off this turban and change their religion because of the symbolism of it. So this turban, it's not a piece of cloth that you tie around. It has a history behind it, a history that I'm proud of. I tie my turban every day and remember that as a Sikh, I stand for these values. I stand for the values of protecting everyone and always standing up for the meek. I stand for the value that everyone is royal. and humans have a basic dignity that they have a right to live with. The other 5 Ks, I spoke about the hair, the case, and the reasoning before that. We have this iron bracelet, the kara, which symbolizes that you reap what you sow, and it reminds us to do good. We have the kirpan, which is not a sword just for the sake of wearing a sword, but this also has a great meaning behind it. The kirpan is made of 2 words, kirpa, which means compassion, and an, which means dignity. Now, it's not for killing, because at the time the kirpan was made a symbol of the Sikhs. Sikhs had guns. If we just wanted to kill, guns were around in the time. The 1700s, guns were around. Sikhs had guns. They had they had weapons that were stronger. The kirpan is not for killing. The kirpan is a symbol. It symbolizes that a Sikh should, once again, as I said before, never be a silent bystander. It symbolizes that a Sikh has a right, and not a right, a duty, a duty to always stand up when they see injustice, to protect those who cannot help themselves, to protect truth, to protect value. A Sikh has that dedication. Even Dante once said that there's a hot spot in hell reserved for those who in the middle of conflict maintain their neutrality. The same way a Sikh never sees evil and keeps silent. That's what our kirpan reminds us about. We have a duty to fight against injustice, to stand up for everyone's basic human rights. And Sikhs have practiced that. If you look at the 9th Guru of the Sikhs, he has given his life for a religion that he did not agree with, for people he did not agree with. He practiced what Voltaire once said, that I might not agree with what you say, but I will give my life for your right to say it. The kirpan symbolizes a Sikh's goal, a Sikh's dedication to justice, to compassion, and dignity, to always protecting those who come into the shelter of a Sikh, no matter what their religion or what their beliefs or who they are. A Sikh is supposed to give shelter and help to all equally. And I'm proud to wear this kirpan. The comb or the kanga symbolizes discipline and cleanliness, and the kachera symbolizes modesty and purity. It is a symbol that both baptized men and women wear. Both of them wear it. It reminds a Sikh that sexually one must not engage in bad acts such as rape. Our Guru said men and women are equal. That's why men also wear the kachera. It's not just a woman covering up and being modest, but it's also a man being told to control yourself. This kachera symbolizes that lifestyle, a lifestyle of modesty and purity. And these symbols have a deep meaning. And it's very juvenile, the way that you mock them, and you can't come up with any intelligent argument against them.